Hey, um, today I want to tell you a little bit about my story. And I want to tell it to you in hopes that maybe it'll inspire you to join this program or, I don't know, maybe it'll give you some insight. I'm also writing a book about this. And I guess maybe part of it is I'm trying to figure out the best way to tell this story because it's so nuanced. Um, but let's just dive in. I want to talk to you about how my career as a sex therapist was actually supposed to be a means to an end to do my music, to express my art within. I didn't set out to be a sex therapist. Actually, I didn't know what I wanted to be or do. In my heart, I knew I wanted to write, play music, do something creative, but I grew up in a smallish town. Where no one that I really knew of did anything creative. I had no creative role models to speak of. And I was a fan of like Joan Jett and, I liked women that were doing like badass things. Um, And to me, where I grew up was boring. It was beige. I wanted color, intrigue, and uncertainty. And I knew that what I wanted because I had seen it on a trip to Europe when I was 11. Um, on the London Underground, of all places. I could smell it on the London streets, the British soap. It was 1983, and I had never seen anything like it in the 11 years of my life in the USA. It was like punk rock, colors. It was fucking cool. And so I think the gist of the story is that I ended up I really wanted to play music, but I didn't know how. And in high school, I ended up going to these underground clubs that were playing cool music, and the boys had eyeliner on and wore frilly shirts, and the girls were androgynous or like wore black and like fishnet stockings. Like it was cool, and really wanted to be a part of that. And I thought it would kind of lead to the artist stuff, the artist in me. But a lot of those people were high school dropouts, um, and and some of them eventually did go to college, of course, and most people have outgrown that now and are living normal lives. But I would say that most of them are quote normal. And I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to do something creative. Um, I will say, like, my parents put me in all sorts of programs, piano, dance. One time I thought I wanted to be a dancer. And I used to make my own clothes because I grew up in a pretty like well-to-do neighborhood, but my parents were super cheap, particularly with me. They gave us all the things that we needed, but like when it came to like fashion and style and stuff, I had to kind of make my own, do it my own way. So I made my own clothes in the eighth grade. We wore my dad's oversized sweaters, and I used to make these long skirts, and I found these pair of like clunky boots with buckles, which in the 80s it was really hard to find in the early 80s at like a mall out in the suburbs. And I found a pair. And so I think I have spent a lot of time doing creative things, but the story that I told myself was that I had no idea how to do it. That's really the ultimate thing of it about it. And I think there was a lot of imposter syndrome around it because I didn't know anybody. I didn't think it was a thing that we could do. So all of that to say, I got to college and I went to school in San Francisco, and I found that San Francisco was this incredibly creative place. And that's where I first started to feel like, oh, I can actually do the thing my heart wants to do. There's a place for me to do that. Um, and I think um, I wanted to play music, but I went ahead and finished my degree in psychology, and I told myself after I graduate, having been in school for like 23 years at that point, because I was 23 when I graduated and I went right into college out of high school. So I was like, oh, I've been in school for 23 years. I'm going to now focus on my music. That was hard. Those first few years out of college, I felt lost. I felt so like I had no idea what I was doing, how to do it. I auditioned for bands. I tried to find girlfriends, either romantic partners or just female friends that could like help me. And like, it's like, I just didn't know what to do. And I was like, I felt so alone and I knew I couldn't do it alone. And I just, yeah, it was like, it was a really hard time. So I think eventually I met a girl. I went on a bunch of auditions and I just always like chickened out. And, I went on this one really bad audition and my friend had set it up for me. And then apparently afterwards, the people that I was at the audition with like didn't have good things to say about me. And my friend like brought it up. Um, she said, my friend was like, "Oh yeah, they said that you didn't really know what you were doing." And I was like, "Really? You really have to like say that to me?" I just thought that was rude. But like as an artist, those messages really mattered. And I was really like scared and like, I don't know, like, it was demoralizing. And so I would bury it and I would hide it. And then, I started dating a guy and I kind of lost my queer community at that point. But I still, in my heart, I had that music and I was like, what am I going to do? I gotta push through. I gotta do it. And I met this girl at work who I just loved her style. And I was always really gravitated towards people who had a really good style, the style that I gravitated towards, not like name brands or anything like that. Very like alternative goth style that I liked, leather jackets, black, red lipstick, cool boots, buckles. I was always really attracted to those types of things. And I realized that I met this girl. And she and I worked together and we became really good friends. And I convinced her to start playing music with me. And she was, we were all late, like mid-20s at the time. So it was like, let's, do this. Very cool. And we started writing music together. It was like kind of early days of making music on computers. It was like 1997, 96, 97-ish. So we started writing music on computers. It was kind of a fairly new thing. She brought her friend in. And so that's when it really started for me. But we weren't serious. I mean, the guy she brought in is actually a well-known artist today. And my friend, she does a lot of creative things herself, but music wasn't their thing. It was mine. And so like, we never really went anywhere, but thank goodness for that. Cause it felt like, okay, I'm starting to do something. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied. I was still nervous. I was still so scared. And then, I decided to apply for graduate school. I got into NYU School of Social Work and I didn't go. I was like, this isn't what I want to do. I still want to play music. But at the time, I quit my job and suddenly I was unemployed, didn't go to grad school, living in San Francisco. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And a friend of mine, my old roommate, had moved down to LA. So I was, called her up and I was like, hey, I'm going to come down for a visit. And my friend that I was playing music with, we took a road trip down from San Francisco to LA. I spent the weekend at my friend's house in West Hollywood. And she was working at a tech company at the time because this was the early tech boom. And she said, why don't you come work for me? And I was like, yes, I'll do it. Because at the time, the tech industry seemed really creative to me. So I was like, I am going to go down to LA, work in creative. And then in the back of my head, I was like, I'm also going to play music. And I had this idea of being like a cool band that like also surfed, like beach girls. I don't know. Not like the beach girl, but I don't know. Anyway. So, so then I moved down to LA with my partner. At the time, the guy that I had been dating, we ended up actually getting married a few years after moving down to LA. And LA was good. I worked in tech and I met a lot of new people. I was starting to make friends. I knew that I still wanted to play music, and I kind of had an opportunity to start fresh and start telling people like I play music, I play guitar, and I had bought some guitars after graduating and was kind of self-teaching myself electric guitar, and I'd already knew how to play piano since I was classically trained in piano. So, kind of fast forward, I ended up getting another job in LA that was in tech still, but also in music. And I met a ton of musicians and artists there. And that's where I met the person that I was going to start my band with. And we started a band and we did really well. That job ended. We all got laid off. The tech boom crashed. The band was still doing really good, but I turned 30 when the band was doing good. And I decided, I had told myself by 30. So when I graduated college, I said, by 30, if you haven't made it in music, you have to go back to school. It wasn't an option to be broke. So I took out school loans because at this point my parents are like, you're too old. We're not helping you anymore. And I'd already made money. So as working in tech, I was making decent money. But once we got laid off, I was like, I can't, I was teaching at a summer camp at the zoo, at the LA Zoo, and making like $12 an hour. And I was like, I have to make more money. And I have to be able to make money so I can make art. Like I couldn't make art. I couldn't make music if I was broke. If I was stressed about money, I wasn't creative. And so it became really important for me to have a stable gig. And I knew that if I went back to get my master's in psychology, I would be able to have control, work for myself as a master's level therapist, and also support my art. And with control, I mean work part-time. So going back to school to get my master's was a means to an end. I wanted to be able to have control of the work that I did so that I could make music. Okay, so now we've set the tone for that. Well, tell you what happens next. I'm playing in a band. I'm going to grad school. I'm burning myself out. And that band eventually breaks up. And once that band broke up, I lost my music community. I lost the creative community. I'd already lost that community when that job ended, that tech job. And then I had the band. And then after the band ended, I lost all of it. I was devastated and I was so sad. And my husband at the time, the guy that I ended up marrying, mimicked what the rest of the world had mimicked all my life, which was, this is a silly, foolish dream. You'll never make it in music. You'll never do anything. And so I had to keep it secret and hidden from him. It was so sad. I was already so sad and devastated. And he thought because I had gone to grad school to become a therapist that I was going back to school to become a full-time therapist and a mother and a wife and oh my gosh, that wasn't the plan at all. And so, I'm devastated. I'm becoming a therapist. I get my license, but I'm not playing music at all. Well, if that's not 100% true, I still tried to look for people to play music with, but I was just hopeless. I did not know how I was going to do it. How, what, when, where, how. I didn't know any of that. So, I guess, the moral of the story is, well, so the next thing I did was, I did continue to play music and I did find people to play music with, right? And people reached out to me to come play in their bands. It wasn't over. That's the catastrophizer in me, my old trauma coming back to haunt me. Promoted the heck out of my practice, my sex therapy practice. I will say one thing. When I was going to grad school, 2 separate friends said to me, you should be a sex therapist. Everyone kind of knew that I used to date women and that I kind of led this kind of lifestyle in San Francisco. And so here I am going to school to to, do therapy. And then people are telling me, two very separate people from two very different friend groups said you should be a sex therapist. And so they didn't know each other. And I thought that's really interesting. And I decided to pursue sex therapy after graduating. And I was like, I'm going to see clients, work for myself and see clients. And I needed to get clients. So once I got licensed, I was like, well, how am I going to get clients? Well, I started promoting myself on social media. I had split up from my husband, and I was living with this guy who I played music with. And, had a lot of downtime because I was, he wasn't around. I don't know what he was doing. He had a drug problem or something. No, he didn't have a drug problem. He smoked a lot of weed and played a lot of video games. Anyway, but he was a really, really talented musician. However, I had a lot of downtime, and I was like, I need to get clients. So I marketed myself on social media, free marketing, like you wouldn't believe. And I started to build this following because no one at the time, this is 2007, was talking about sex therapy on social media. I mean, some people were, but so I got this big following on Twitter. Nina Hartley, who is a famous adult actress, had created this top 20 sex therapists, and I was on the list, and I was emailing people. How do I get clients? I don't know. So, and I was shy. So I wasn't going out and marketing myself. I wasn't going to networking events. I was doing everything online. So I built this huge sex therapy following online, and that's how I built my practice. It was supposed to be a means to an end. I needed more clients. How do I get more clients? I'm going to market myself. I never wanted to be a sex therapist. It was a means to an end to do my music, guys. And I think that's where the rub is today. There's a little bit of rub there for me, which is neither here nor there, because at the end of the day, I did what I set out to do. I worked part-time at my sex therapy practice to it, and I created this business, and it's mine. I have full control. And guess what? Guess what I do when I'm not working at my business? I'm resting. I do a lot of resting. I'm 51 now, almost 52 in April. And I do a lot of resting. I recently injured my shoulder. So the last week I was at home doing nothing. And then the rest of the time I'm writing, I'm playing music, I'm writing songs. I do what I set out to do. So I don't know if this inspires you at all, but the point about it is I do work part-time and am able to do what I love part-time, which is my music. And I love sex therapy in the sense that I love the creative aspects of this career. I love creating my courses. I love spreading the message and teaching all of you. I love helping people, couples, especially with their relationships. And I didn't want to work a corporate job that drained me at the end of the day. I wanted to do something that was mine, that I had full control of. And I get to do that as a sex therapist. So that's it. That's the moral of the story. Let me know how that resonates with you. Let me know what you think about it. And I would love to see you in there. We really need more sex educators and coaches to make an impact and to make an impactful difference. One person that actually finished all the coursework in 8 weeks. So it can be done in 8 weeks. I've been sort of telling everyone it can be done in 10 weeks. It can also be done at your pace. We have weekly coaching calls. We have a Facebook group. There's videos, there's quizzes. And figuring out what your path is, because we do a lot of work around what kind of business do you want? Do you want to write books? Do you want to be an activist? Or do you want to see clients? That type of thing.